Welcome back, Sovereign Sisters, to the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement Podcast, your sanctuary where we blend science and spirituality from a perspective of Kundalini Yoga therapy and Christ consciousness in A Course in Miracles, so that not only can you understand and heal your body, mind, and spirit, but so that you can end the cycle and heal 7 generations before and after you. And today we're going to continue in our series of the different systems of the body and how generational trauma impacts them. Also, how to actually get to the root cause and heal each of the systems. And today we're going to be talking about something that every woman struggles with, especially if they've been through patterns of generational trauma that cause them to live under chronic stress. But what I'm going to be saying about this is something that also women don't fully understand in the totality. What I'm referring to is this week we are going to be talking about the endocrine system. And the endocrine system is connected to this word that many women struggle with, which is called our hormones. So we're going to be looking at the entire endocrine system, the glands, the hormones, the cycles, the messages, and the ancestral story that they actually carry. Because your endocrine system and your hormones, whether they're balanced or not, that's not some kind of random act or maybe you just being unlucky. Your hormones are actually very intelligent and they are communicators and they always respond to your emotions, to your environment, and especially to your nervous system. As you know, we talked about the nervous system in that last podcast episode, so I'll link it below in case you missed it. But all of this is connected to your lineage, your ancestors. And today's episode is going to give you not just the science, but the spiritual and energetic symbolism, the actual road to truth, liberation, and sovereignty, and a very detailed trauma informed perspective that is going to help you not only understand the endocrine system, but really understand what the root cause of why there is hormonal imbalance that causes the endocrine system to basically not function the way it should be functioning when there are no trauma patterns. And I'm going to explain everything to you in a way that even a fifth grader can understand it because when you understand, you remember. Knowledge is power, but we have to put it into action. We have to put it into use. And today we're going to look at the actual solutions, the root cause solutions that modern day medicine is simply not addressing. So before we get started, I'm welcoming you to go grab some coffee, some tea, to just take a deep breath in and to get ready to go on this very beautiful ride because the endocrine system is a journey of so much wisdom and one that can help us really feel safe in our bodies again and also feel empowered in doing that. So let's start really simple so we don't get ahead of ourselves and understand first what is the endocrine system. So remember I was talking to you all about in the last week's episode, which again I'll link below, where I went in very much detail about the nervous system and how it's connected to generational trauma. Well, the nervous system, I was saying that is like your body's like electrical wiring. It's your soul's electrical energy that allows it to actually exist in this realm of the physical world. And if the nervous system is your body's electrical wiring, then that means that your endocrine system is like the Wi-Fi network. Instead of electricity, the endocrine system uses hormones, tiny little chemical messengers that actually travel through your blood and they tell your body what to do. And here's the thing about hormones. Hormones control everything. They control your mood, they control your energy levels, they control your sleep, your cycle as a woman, your stress responses, your immune system, which we've also addressed the immune system in our podcast here. Go check that episode out because it's really going to enlighten you as to actually how much your body is trying to heal you and not attack you. Where most of us think illness is like, oh my God, my body's falling apart. No, it's actually trying to defend you. So check out that podcast episode as well here on the podcast. But it's in control of everything. It's your emotions, your ability to feel safe in your body, and your ability to feel connected. Hormonal imbalances can cause serious relationship issues because they impact how we feel, and sometimes they're very much confused with mental disorders when what we're really dealing with is a hormonal imbalance. And why? Well, I'm going to show you why. It has to do with chronic stress, but ultimately, that chronic stress is being driven not just by our lifestyles, but by the trauma that not only we have experienced, but that our ancestors and lineage has experienced. So one way to think about like the endocrine system is kind of like a group chat. Think of it that way, where your glands are like sending messages all the time, your hormones are delivering them, and your body then reacts because the body's are constantly communicating. And there's the body's so wise and it sends signals and messages, but most of these signals and messages are actually programs, and we're not even aware because these programs have been pre-wired into the nervous system even at in the womb when your mama or madrecita or mommy was pregnant with you. That's when it actually started. So when trauma, and we're talking about 95% of trauma is generational. So like being raised by a mother who was depressed or which caused her to be abusive, right? A father that completely abandoned you because his nervous system did not have the capacity to show up for you, not because of who you are, right? Or perhaps a father who was abusive. We talked about the different types of father wounding. Very important to learn about that because awareness is the first step, right? And so when we are experiencing these patterns of trauma, which a lot of people, especially when it comes to generational trauma, and especially if you're a woman of color, I know in Mexico it's almost like shameful to like to think that the way your parents raised you is what's causing your instabilities now as an adult. But we're not blaming. We're simply stating a fact that our parents were going through their own trauma patterns. This is why they keep getting passed down, and that they truly did the best that they could based on their nervous system, their endocrine system, and their hormones. Literally, it's like a biological and spiritual blockage that we have to work through. So whenever there's the generational trauma that enters into the story, the tone of the messages change, right? Your thoughts change. And thoughts create what is known as neuropeptides. We talked about this before. And those are the chemicals that the hormones are creating that are sending signals to your cells. And if those thoughts are of anger, resentment, grief that hasn't been processed, your cells are not getting healthier, they're getting more sick. But it's because of this chemical that's being sent to the cell because your hormones are out of balance, not because you're broken or weak, but because you've stayed in states of chronic stress. That's the difference of post-traumatic stress versus complex trauma. Complex PTS is your entire lifetime has been lived in survival, where maybe there was a very tragic um, death in your family that you haven't been able to release the grief from, even if it happened 40, 50 years ago. It when that story enters into your consciousness, then your entire narrative about life and perception changes. And that's how chronic stress becomes a hormonal imbalance. It's how childhood patterns become adult symptoms of illness. It's how generational trauma becomes endocrine trauma because the endocrine system is just simply trying to do its work, but your nervous system keeps telling it that we're in fight and flight, that something dangerous is happening. Not because something dangerous is, it's because it got stuck and wired that way since you were a child. So, to better understand that, let's meet the glands of the family, the endocrine glands, the real bosses of your hormonal system. And then we're going to look at the hormones too. And especially I want to share with you one specific hormone that most women rarely hear about that is so impacted by generational trauma that it causes you to feel literally less worthy, like you don't want to you sabotage your success because you have a visibility wound that blocks you. The nervous system can't handle attention, more clients, more money, more success. So we'll get to that next. But before we talk about that, let's meet all of the different glands so that you can better understand the endocrine system or the real bosses of your entire hormonal system. So first we have what is known as the pineal gland in the brain, which is your like inner light switch. And this controls all of your sleep, dreams, intuition. And in spirituality, we know this to be the single eye, the seat of the soul. And in Kundalini Yoga, which we're going to talk about right now, the solutions, there are specific meditations that activate this pineal gland. And these glands are very important because remember, these pineal glands are responsible for creating chemicals as well. They're responsible for balancing your hormones, which is where the solutions are going to come in next through chanting Kundalini Yoga mantra. I'm going to share with you a specific mantra to do that. So the pineal gland is the seat of the soul. Most of us, especially if you've been through trauma, the pineal gland is hijacked. You don't know, you don't remember who you are, the highest daughter of God, and you don't have that beautiful secretion of like the DMT and all the beautiful chemicals that actually are considered the God particle, the God consciousness. And that's because, again, when you go through trauma, when the nervous system becomes impacted and stays in fight and flight, then the pituitary gland doesn't, or the pineal gland doesn't function. And then from the pineal gland, what's the next gland that's super important is the pituitary. This is like the master boss because the master boss controls all the other glands. So think of the pituitary as like the principal of the entire school, where the pineal is like this inner light switch, right? And the pituitary is basically in charge, but when there has been trauma, and this is where addiction comes into place, the pineal and the pituitary, they stop communicating with each other. So there's a hormonal imbalance that blocks them from communicating. And so then what we develop are coping mechanisms to deal with that lack of communication, which that means we develop addictions. And that's what an addiction is. So which is why through Kundalini Yoga, we have a meditation, the addiction meditation, that literally you rewire the brain in a way where these two glands start to talk to each other because they stop talking to each other at one point. Another very important part of the glands is your thyroid. And this is like your entire inner thermostat. It controls your metabolism, your energy, your mood. It's emotionally connected to your voice, to your truth, to your expression. So think about generational trauma. A lot of parts of generational trauma, they're so heavy and they're so painful that we tuck them under the rug. Or you might want to talk to someone about them and they say, no, no, we don't talk about that in this family. We pretend it didn't happen. We can't deal with that. And a lot of people that have gone through that, they have thyroid issues. So it's not caused because, oh my God, they're just unlucky or they're being punished. Literally there's something that they cannot metabolize. They're not connected to the voice of truth. They can't express themselves because they've been quieted down since they were, or told to be quiet since they were children. So if you've had a healthy childhood where you've been able to express yourself, that inner thermostat works great, and you don't have issues with speaking up, right? So then the next gland is what is known as the thymus gland, and this is our heart protector. And so the thymus is very much in control of the immune system. And we just did a podcast episode on the immune system, so go catch it. I'll put it in the description here below. But this is what it's connected to emotionally, to our boundaries, to our belonging, to our worthiness, right? And it's the thymus is what keeps the immune system in repair mode versus defend mode, right? And if they're not functioning and working together because there's like thieves in the house, which are like these trauma patterns, then it's just not going to repair you. It's going to basically defend you, and that's what causes autoimmune diseases. And so then from the thymus, we also have what is known as the adrenals. And these are very, very important because they're like your emergency buttons and they control the stress responses, your fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, and even shutdown. And the adrenals, many women struggle with inflamed adrenals. It doesn't mean that, again, your body's broken. It just means that you've been living under chronic stress for way too long. And so from the adrenals, then what's next is the pancreas. And your pancreas is kind of like the inner chef, and it controls your blood sugar, your nourishment. It's very deeply tied to emotional safety and also to our ability to feel emotions and feel safe in our bodies doing so. Remember, when there's a hormonal imbalance, what that really means is that you have way too much cortisol and you're not producing all the other hormones because you've lived under these states of survival, which our ancestors did too. So if that's the case, then you don't feel safe. There's no emotional safety to feel your emotions or to even hold space for someone else. And this is a big problem for empaths and for cycle breakers because they think that this is just the way I am. I take on everyone's emotions. No, you taking on everyone else's emotions is actually a trauma response. You have to regulate the nervous system, which changes the endocrine system and your hormones, so that whenever someone is going through anything, you're able to transmute those emotions and not store them in your body, which is what most of us do. And we think we're doing a heroic thing by saving others. It's just a way of bypassing what we really need to work on from within us. So don't let your ego fool you. More on that later. Then we have for women ovaries. These are like the creators, right? And they're very responsible for hormones, estrogen, progesterone, a little bit of testosterone. And then we're going to talk about this very important hormone that no one talks about that literally impacts your worth. And we'll to get into it because there's a difference between men hormones and women hormones. But the ovaries in itself, they control your cycles, your emotions, your fertility, and even your creativity. Now, men, they have what is known as the testes, right? And those are the builders. The hormone that is mainly used there is the testosterone, which is what mainly drives a male, very different than a woman. And it controls their focus, their strength, their drive. And you have to remember that men have a 24-hour cycle versus women, we have a 28-day cycle. So every week is so different for a woman based on where they are in their cycle. Women feel more, and in Kundalini Yoga, Yogi Bhajan said that women are 16 times more emotional. It doesn't mean that we're more of a mess or more dramatic. What this means is that we feel more because we have a womb, we have an ovary, and we feel more because our endocrine systems are much more complex. They're cyclical, 28 days. They're very intuitive and they're very emotionally responsive. And this is why women carry lineage trauma very differently through their hormones than a male would. And that's why it's important to understand the differences. And we'll get to that. Now, before we talk about the differences, especially this one main hormone that I haven't mentioned, let's first understand the hormone pathway. Because the hormone pathway it's important to understand that every hormone follows this very same pathway. So let's break it down so that you get a visualization of how this actually works. So the hormone pathway starts with number one, your brain notices something, right? Your brain does not produce consciousness, it downloads. It's like a radio that attunes to a frequency. And most people, because there's no meditation and there has been generational trauma, they're actually attuning to the station that is the program, not the truth. The truth is you are the highest daughter of God. You are love, right? You are a soul having this human experience, right? No program, no ego. So the brain is constantly downloading. And so the brain is going to notice something, a sound, a memory, a smell, a stressor, a feeling, anything, right? So that's the first path of the hormone. Number two, the brain then is going to send a message to the pituitary gland, the master gland that we just talked about. And then this pituitary gland is going to then send instructions to another gland. It's either going to say, based on what that message is or based on what the brain noticed, it's going to say, release cortisol. We have to protect her. We have to protect her, right? Or release estrogen or release insulin. It really depends on what the brain is noticing, right? And then these glands then release the hormones. So then what happens? Your body reacts. Your heart rate changes based on that message. Your mood is going to shift. Your energy is either going to rise or it's going to fall. And what happens to your digestion? It's either going to speed up or it's going to slow down. Your cycle completely adjusts. One signal, one message, and look at the chain reaction. And again, your brain, that's why we need to rewire it because it's been programmed to continue to look for the same evil, negative, dark messages. Your brain, if you've been through patterns of generational trauma, it goes into hypervigilant mode where you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. So, like growing up in a chaotic household where your parents were always fighting, your brain does not tune or look for God or love or things to work out or faith, all that. Your brain is literally looking for the chaos and for the drama because that's what you're used to. That's what you're addicted to. Hormonally, in the nervous system, it's unconscious, but that's why. And that's why it's creating this chain reaction. And this chain reaction is incredibly sensitive to trauma. So we have to change the brain and the nervous system to change the endocrine system and the hormones in order for us to fully heal, not just ourselves, but seven generations before and after us. Now, to better understand this, let's look at hormones so that you can have a better idea. Now, in the 70s and 80s, all of and 60s, all of the like scientific work that they did on hormones, it was done on males, very few women. So a lot of the science that we actually have, whether it's for healing or understanding ourselves, is actually derived from only the male body or the male science, the male autonomy, and nothing about the women. And we're completely two different aspects of energy and consciousness. Women hormones versus men's hormones are so different because women create life through the through birthing, right? Men don't do that. So they don't require the use of the same hormones or the same levels of amount. Men typically, they work with like testosterone. That's like their main sex hormone. It drives it's their driver, it's the focus, it's the strength, it's the consistency, and that cycle runs every 24 hours. It actually resets daily. Now, for women, that's where it gets very different. And this is why so many women today feel so invisible, so anxious, and so stuck in survival. Now, what we work through is three main sex hormones. Estradiol, which we're going to talk about today, that's the most powerful form of estrogen. And this is like what most women have very low amounts of because of chronic stress and generational trauma and lifestyles, which is why it actually is correlated to feeling worthy, confidence, and you even give out a different type of smell, as you're going to see right now, where it's been scientifically proven like men, when women have high estradiol, they actually attract men 58% of the time more than someone who doesn't, even if they're not wearing any makeup, even if they don't got all these surgeries and all this stuff. So there's three main sex hormones for women: estradiol, progesterone, and a small amount of testosterone. Very different than the male, right? Male, all testosterone. So women's hormones, we move in a 28-day cycle, not a 24-hour one. And that means a woman's body and her emotions, they shift from week to week to week, not every day. But the most powerful hormone for a woman's confidence, for her visibility, for being magnetic is what is known as estradiol. And for any of you that want to research it more, it's spelled estradiol, estradiol, estradiol. And estradiol is the hormone that controls literally your confidence, sexuality, your libido, your charisma, your presence, even the tone of your voice, how you walk, how much space a woman takes up, how alive your body feels, how safe you feel in your nervous system to be seen. Because why we self-sabotage our success is because our nervous systems, if they're hijacked by adrenaline and cortisol, which is a hormone that comes from living under chronic stress, right? Then our nervous system doesn't even have the capacity to get more clients, to have more money, to have more followers, even on social media, because we don't feel safe being seen. And this is not personality, it's biochemistry. High estradiol is literally like the radiant body in Kundalini yoga. When a woman has healthy estradiol levels, her body naturally moves into what we call radiance. That's the radiant body. There's specific meditations and kriyas in Kundalini yoga that activate the radiant body, which keeps your endocrine system very healthy. It's connected very much to the aura, which I'll talk about here in a moment. But basically, if you have healthy estradiol levels, you're going to feel confident without even trying. You're going to make eye contact naturally. Your voice is going to be fuller. It's going to come from a place of your heart and groundedness and presence, right? Versus from the past or what do people think about me, right? Your posture is going to open. It's going to change completely. Your walk, even the way you walk into a room, grounded, right? Your body scent, it even changes. Your entire energy becomes warm and alive. And what's trippy is that studies show that women with higher estradiol receive up to 58% more attention, even without makeup. Isn't that wild? So your beauty is directly connected to your hormonal balance or imbalance. And that's what they also call there's a term known as cortisol face, which is somebody you might be super thin, but you're inflamed in the face. That's chronic stress, right? So it's not because of our looks, it's because of estradiol changes, nonverbal signals of how you really are are showing up in the world. And on a biological level, the male brain reads this high estradiol as, oh my God, life, health, fertility, emotional availability, safety to connect. So it's not even cosmetic, it's chemical and energetic. That's how you become so magnetic, right? And you know, these women out there that, maybe physically they are not like the most gorgeous woman in the world, but yet my God, they're so magnetic and everything comes to them and you just want to be around them. That's true beauty. And that, like I said, has nothing to do with cosmetic surgeries or what you put on. It's chemical and energetic, which means if you don't heal your trauma, you're always going to be hormonally imbalanced. Your scent is going to always be projecting out. I don't feel safe. It's not safe to connect with me. I'm not emotionally available. These are signals that your body is sending without you saying anything. Low estradiol, in fact, creates what is known as invisible mode. Because when estradiol drops, the body instinctively switches into survival and invisibility. Your anxiety is going to increase, your insecurity is going to increase. The thought of I'm not good enough is going to get louder and louder. Your body's going to slouch. You're not going to want to take up space. You're going to have a visibility wound. You're going to hide your figure with clothes. You're going to want to avoid attention. You're going to basically avoid ever being seen. And it's not because you're modest or you're just a humble person. None at all. It's not because also you're lacking confidence as a personality trait. It's because your nervous system cannot handle attention when estradiol is low. Basically, the body is choosing, let me not be seen. It's safer this way. And this is not a mindset issue, it's a survival hormone response. And this is why so many women live with low estradiol today. It's because of the generational trauma, but also because modern life, they're colliding together. And have you noticed that we have a higher rate in mental health instabilities? A lot of the things that we confuse for mental health have to do with hormonal imbalances. And especially with this hormone estradiol, because the main killers of estradiol are chronic stress. So again, generational trauma in the nervous system, chaotic household since you were a little child, um, mother, grandmother, grandfather, a lot of grief that they cannot process, people dying in your family that you were not able to heal from, right? Very common. And this generational, these traumas of pattern, they kick the cortisol into high gear, and high cortisol blocks estradiol production. So many women, because of chronic stress, have very high level of cortisol, and that's why they're imbalanced in. So do you see how it has everything to do with your emotions and your experiences and trauma, and not there's no magic pill to try to like save you from this. We got to get to the root cause. And then from chronic stress, you know what leads into that. You not getting enough sleep. A lot of women will go to sleep 9 hours, but they wake up as if they slept one. Why? Because your hormones need to regenerate during deep rest. And if you're when you go through patterns of generational trauma or and living in chronic stress, your circadian rhythm, which is your sleep rhythm, completely goes out of whack. And then we have another big problem right now, which is our cell phones and our screens. The screens, that light doesn't, even if you're looking at that at 10 o'clock at night, that light, this was done on purpose, in my opinion, makes your body believe that it's 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning. It makes your body believe that it's daytime. So that messes your circadian rhythm. And we're addicted to our phones not because we're weak, it's because we have a hormonal imbalance that's being caused by generational trauma. That's what it is. So your hormones have to regenerate during deep rest. And if you're not getting, I'm talking about deep REM sleep, then that's why you wake up very tired, anxious, all these other things, right? Another thing that women are not doing right is the crazy fad diets. When you're not eating healthy fats in your diet, your hormones literally are made from fat. So what do you think happens? Then you're depleting your hormonal balance. You're depleting all the great hormones. So you have to learn to eat healthy fats, like avocado and things of that nature, that is going to help you create those hormones because, like I said, they're actually made from fat. The other thing is that you might feel like there's a constant mental load, work, kids, survival pressure, fear, look at the economy, all these hypervigilance, financial stress. That constant mental load causes that estradiol to become less and less and less. And that causes also a lot of imbalances in your hormones. I mean, think about it. Most modern women are living in go, go, go mode, no time to rest. When you're on your moon cycle, that's the time that you need to get the most rest. And if you actually rested during the moon cycle, you would be a quadrillion times more productive the rest of the 3 weeks. But we are like in this society of push, 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 especially for women, toxic masculinity, which believe me, it was a huge problem in my life, toxic masculinity. But once I've balanced my hormones through Kundalini yoga therapy, my life is now about surrender and alignment to take action, not massive action to then burn out my nervous system and my brain and my adrenals and my hormones, which then are going to cause me to end up sick or in the hospital. And you're noticing a lot of people right now, they're like high achieving women, right? And they're pushing, pushing, pushing. All of a sudden, you don't hear from them anymore. Well, they had what is known as a burnout. Their nervous system crashed. And it's all because living under these stress states of go, 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 not honoring yourself. And with generational trauma, this is the most common thing, especially grief. So many families, they go through very traumatic things and they're not able to talk about them. They're not able to move the emotions. There's shame around them. And then they say you gotta just get back to work. You gotta get back to your normal life. You have to get back to your kids. So it's go, go, go. And you didn't process that grief. You didn't remove it from your body because it gets stuck in the body. Then you're gonna go into complete hormonal imbalance, right? So that's what equates to living in survival mode. That's how our ancestors, many of them lived, whether there was not enough food, water, again, whether there was abuse, family dysfunction, all those things cause them to learn to live in survival mode, which then causes these incredible imbalances, which causes us to live in under performance instead of surrender. Like we always have to feel like we have to be performing. I was talking to my community about this movie that I saw. It's called The Iron Claw. Let me know in the comments if you've ever seen it. But The Iron Claw is this movie about this famous wrestling family. The dad thought he was cursed because all these tragic things were happening in his lineage, in his family. But it wasn't that. It was the fact that he was like a slave driver. It was all about performance. He didn't allow his boys, six of them, to feel their emotions. He said you have to keep going. So all of his sons were dying, and they were dying not because of a curse. The curse is you not feeling the grief. Because if you don't move the grief out of your body, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. God's not punishing you. You should really watch that movie. And I don't know if most people will understand from watching it what I'm saying, but I was able to see that. That's not a curse. That's the dad living in high chronic stress, no time to grieve, no time to rest, and then teaching his kids how to live that way. And the thing is that the body, when you have high cortisol, which is living under chronic stress, estradiol is pushed down, and then the body's gonna choose, I need to survive, not shine, right? And that's why so many women say, I don't feel like myself anymore. I feel invisible. I don't recognize my energy. The chronic stress, the pressure, either a father who was like the iron claw father who never let you rest, or you could have had a kind father, but he never protected you. Same thing with your mom. Your mom could have been super kind, but she maybe didn't protect you. And that's where these imbalances occur, and they become these mantras, these affirmations like, I feel invisible, I don't recognize my energy, I don't feel like myself anymore. And it's not a character flaw, it's biology. And this biology is just shaped by the trauma and by your lifestyle. And so for women carrying generational trauma, the stress response is often already hyperactivated before they become adults, even before life begins, because that stuff gets wired in the womb. So estradiol is connected to your worth, to your decision making, to trusting yourself, to motivation. And when estradiol is healthy, you as a woman say, I can, I'm worthy, I belong, it's safe to be seen. When estradiol is low, you're gonna say, "What if they judge me? Oh my God, I need to hide. I don't want anyone to notice me. What if I fail? I'm not enough." It's safer to stay small. It's not mindset. It's hormones shaping your perception. And this is why beauty in itself is not just external. It's beauty is hormonal. It's energy before it's makeup. You can put up makeup on survival energy, but it's not going to feel the same as radiance, right? Radiance comes from the inside. It's from the endocrine system actually feeling safe. So if your mom always lived in survival, your estradiol formed in survival. If your grandmother lived in fear, scarcity, your estradiol learned to hide. If the women before you were punished for being seen, maybe they were healers and they couldn't practice, maybe they were abused, all types of abuse, physical, sexual, emotional. Your estradiol learned invisibility as protection. So your brain starts to self sabotage your success. Your hormone system is not failing you, it's adapted to keep you safe in a lineage that did not always allow visibility, power, or even rest for women. And so the healing path is not try to be more confident. That's ridiculous. The healing path is we need to restore safety in the nervous system, which changes the endocrine system, the hormones, estradiol, which rises naturally, restores confidence, and returns without force. And that's why this work has to be nervous system based, hormonal, ancestral, and spiritual. That's what we call holistic healing. It's not just mindset. That's why talk therapy has such low success rates, because basically talk therapy is just like you re-identifying with the problem instead of you don't have to visit the past. All of the teachings of Freud were absolutely incorrect, and he only got put as the father of psychiatry because they wanted that message to be the propaganda, so that you can keep going to the past and remembering. Imagine if you keep going to the past in talk therapy. It's going to activate cortisol and adrenaline because you're retelling the story over and over and over again. I'm not saying we bypass and we don't get it out of our systems. We have to acknowledge and become aware, right? But to continue to talk about it and not do anything somatically and release these trauma patterns from the nervous system and the brain, it's not going to work at all. Now, when we look at this from a scientific lens, from the Christ consciousness lens, and specifically from the teachings of A Course in Miracles, which is Jesus Christ speaking to us, one of the things that the Course says is that the body is a communication device. So what does this mean? First of all, we idolize the body. We're so afraid of death that we think we are the body. And thinking we are the body has a lot to do with trauma because your body is basically, if you give yourself the identity of a body, it's just the stories you tell about yourself. You are an infinite soul having this experience, this human experience, right? So your body is but a communication device, very wise and intelligent. And like we were talking last week with the immune system, your body getting ill is not a sign of failure. Your body's just communicating with you that you believe you're separate from God, period. So your body as a communication device as it relates to hormones means that your hormones are not malfunctioning. They're just messengers. They're just communicating. And what are they communicating? If you have high levels of cortisol and adrenaline, or if you have beautiful estrogen or estradiol, then they're communicating where you feel safe, but also where you feel disconnected, where you feel abandoned by God, where you're holding your mother's wounds, your father's wounds, where truth has been swallowed, where your lineage still needs light. That's it. Jesus Christ in A Course in Miracles teaches us that everything is either love or a call for love. That's it. So hormonal imbalance is not a failure. It is a call for love inside of your biology. It's a cry for compassion. It's a request for safety, a request for the truth, a request for God. Where were you, God, when I was going through that traumatic experience? So, from a Christ consciousness lens, your endocrine glands are like the physical expression of all of the spiritual principles. I mean, think about it. Your pineal gland, part of your endocrine system in the brain, that's the single eye, the city of the soul, right? Your pituitary, that's your divine perception, not the program. Perception is the program we give based on our past experience, which we can change the perception or the meaning we give to trauma, which changes our life. But divine perception is being able to see through the eyes of Christ, through the eyes of God, which is why you're here incarnated in these bodies. So, pineal, single eye, pituitary is divine perception, thyroid is your voice of truth, which is your throat chakra. Thymus, think about the thymus, that's forgiveness. Your adrenals is the safety in God. Your ovaries are the Kundalini, creative Ma, and life force energy. And your aura, which is your electromagnetic field, is like the Christ shield. And that aura is very much connected to your endocrine system because your aura, when you've been through a lot of patterns of generational trauma that have not been released from the body because the body keeps score, instead of being this beautiful, white, thick electromagnetic field around you, there's like holes in it. And if there's holes in it, that means that outer, like spiritual warfare or people sending you bad energy, it's infiltrating it. And it's like a storm that went through the aura where it leaves it all messed up. So it's not protecting you from disease, physical, spiritual disease. So the aura is like the Christ shield. The aura is comprised of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So if we are hormonally imbalanced, the aura is going to be fragmented as well. And so when your glands align through chanting mantra, which I'm going to explain to you how that works right now, your aura is going to strengthen. And when your aura strengthens, which is this electromagnetic field that can be measured scientifically now, then the fear is going to dissolve. And this is the Christ consciousness truth. Your glands light up your light, your soul. So your endocrine system is like a bridge between the body and God. That's your entire nervous system. Between trauma and truth, between lineage and liberation and sovereignty. So how do we do this, right? We have such a wise body. How do we actually balance our hormones and our endocrine system so that these messages, instead of coming from the program of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy enough, life is scary, instead come from God consciousness. I am worthy. I am more than enough. I am the highest daughter of God. Now, this is where science and spirituality actually merge. Because in Kundalini Yoga therapy, chanting is not just like singing or music. It's literally glandular medicine. There's this quote that Yogi Bhajan said. Yogi Bhajan is the tantric master who brought the teachings from the East to the West in the 1960s. And he said this. He said, any roughness in your life creates a reaction in your glandular system. So that's that storm I was talking to you about, right? The divorce, the the death in your family, the end of a job, all those things are traumatic, right? So that's what roughness is. And that roughness creates the reaction in the glandular system. The glands are the guardians of your health and your happiness. The glands are the guardians of your health and your happiness. Now, why does chanting work? Well, because inside of your mouth, upper palate, there are 84 meridian points. So think of this as like piano keys. So every time your tongue taps the roof of your mouth when you're chanting mantra, because mantra, and I'm going to share one with you right now, is the science of sound. Much more powerful than an affirmation because the English language really is like hijacked. It doesn't really, the essence of what the sound is not, cannot be fully expressed in the English language. The mantra is the science of sound. Remember, I told you frequency gets faster to the cells than the chemical does of the neuropeptide or the hormone that is sending those messages through negative thoughts. So when you chant, it's the most powerful form of vocal toning. Vocal toning means self-healing. And why? Because these 84 meridian points that are like piano keys, every time your tongue taps the roof of your mouth while chanting a mantra, you're like pressing a key. And that key is sending signals to specific areas of the brain depending on the mantra. So it's sending signals to the hypothalamus. Hey, 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 wake up, wake up. Let's change the tone, and then sending signals to the pituitary. Hey, 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 here's some prana. Instead of sending chemicals of cortisol and adrenaline, you're chanting. Now you're sending frequency. That's healing. That's revitalizing. That's restoring, regrowing even. And all of this, it controls your hormones. This is the endocrine rewiring through sound. So, a mantra that I want to share with you all today that's really good for specifically your endocrine system and your hormonal balance is what we use in Kundalini Yoga that is known as Har Hare Hari Wa He Guru. Har Hare Hari Wa He Guru. Now, this mantra, first, let me explain to you what it means. Har means creative force energy. Hare means transformation. Hari, unfolding manifestation. And Wahe Guru means from darkness to light. It's the ecstasy of divine awakening. It's the ecstasy of God. So the mantra, these sounds particularly, what they're doing is number one, they're stimulating the pituitary part of your brain, awakening the pineal as well. It's balancing the thyroid. It's literally sending signals to the adrenals. It's changing the messages that are coming to the ovaries. And through that balance, it's strengthening the entire aura. So, in essence, it's literally clearing generational trauma from the womb space and reorganizing your emotional memory. Like, this is literal endocrine therapy. Now, so this mantra, you can always start by chanting it for 3 minutes. Go up to 5, 7, 11 minutes, chant it for 31 minutes or even 62 minutes. And all you have to do is sit in stillness and close your eyes if you're able to and chant it. I'm going to put it here in the description notes so you have the right wording on it. Har Hare Hari Wa He Guru. Har Hare Hari Wa He Guru. That is the endocrine therapy that I was talking about, that being consistent for a minimum. We've seen major changes at the 21-day mark, but the biggest change at the 40-day mark because there's a science behind this. The frontal lobe of the brain is actually controlled by meditation, and the hypothalamus is controlled by chanting. So the frontal lobe, decision making, emotional regulation, clarity, compassion, and the hypothalamus, which is responsible for your hormones, your hunger, your sleep, your stress, bonding, even your fear responses. So meditation literally changes your mind. Chanting changes your entire hormones. And chanting is meditation. And this is why women who practice Kundalini Yoga therapy, they regulate faster. Your nervous system is not supposed to stay regulated all the time. You're a human being having emotions. So when it becomes dysregulated, it can come back into regulation naturally by itself, right? When women practice Kundalini Yoga therapy, they're stabilizing their cycles. A clear sign that your hormones are in balance is if your moon cycle gravitates back towards the full moon or the new moon. That means that you're now in rhythm with Mother Earth. And that's what started happening with me. And especially for women, because if you're taking birth control, my God, that's a whole other podcast episode. But how bad it is for hormones. And now young girls are taking birth control because they have cramps. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. And also the foods that we eat. That's why so many girls are getting their moon cycle a lot younger than before. But why do we pick these processed foods to eat? If it's because of the nervous system and the trauma. If you didn't have that trauma and your nervous system wasn't hijacked and you didn't have hormonal imbalance, you wouldn't be grabbing all those processed foods, right? So when you practice Kundalini Yoga therapy, because your nervous system is rewired and is re-educated to get out of the fight and flight, that's going to change your brain, neurons, pineal, pituitary, and the glands, right? So if that's going to change, your hormones are going to change, which means you're not going to overeat. You're not going to grab the things that are not necessarily good for you, right? So it's stabilizing moon cycles. It's going to reduce cortisol. And I've had women come into my program and they're like, "Oh, the doctor tells me I have a high cortisol level." And they'll go back to the doctor after 30, 40 days, right? They have an appointment and their cortisol levels are way down. And the doctor's like, "What are you doing? Keep doing what you're doing." Right? It's not like they got lucky. They started practicing Kundalini Yoga therapy. Why? Because through that, when you rewire the nervous system, it changes your anxiety levels, it's changing your trauma pattern responses, it's rebuilding self-trust, and it's restoring connection to God ultimately. It's not magic, it's biology and frequency. That's really what it is. And so we have to remember that frequency is what purifies, and that's what meditation is. That's what chanting is. Chanting literally changes your frequency, which changes your emotional patterns because it changes your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And that's what changes your endocrine system. In fact, there's a aspect of ourselves that is known as like the tapas, which is this inner heat, and we produce this inner heat, which purifies and protects the physical body when we chant. It changes the frequency of the tattvas, which are the elements. All of us are comprised of the elements earth, fire, water, right? All of those things, air. And those tattvas, then when we meditate, we produce tapas, which is this inner heat that keeps the tattvas healthy. But that inner heat also serves as purification, as hormonal reset, right? Purification leads to hormonal reset, and hormonal reset then leads to nervous system healing. It's a science. So chanting mantra literally changes your frequency, which changes your emotional patterns, which changes your entire endocrine system. And that's why we have to understand the science behind this. When you live in chronic stress, your adrenals pump cortisol. Your thyroid is going to slow down. That's what chronic stress, PTS, all because of generational trauma patterns. And your pituitary and your brain, it's going to stop working the way it works. Your ovaries are going to change the hormone production. Why do you think it's so hard for women to get pregnant nowadays? Our modern day lifestyles combined with patterns of trauma, it's a perfect recipe. And then the foods that we eat, perfect recipe to not be fertile, to not be able to have babies, right? Many of them, the women in my community, they could not get pregnant. We've had three different babies born. Yeah, three different babies where these women could not get pregnant. And they started practicing Kundalini Yoga therapy. They basically balanced their hormones. And now we have three beautiful babies that are part of the community. Do we have three or four? There's three babies that have been born in the last 2 years. Again, it's not magic. It's their hormones are now in balance because the brain has changed and the nervous system has changed, right? We want to make sure that we're dealing with all of these things because it leads to moods becoming very unpredictable, which is why a lot of women that go through perimenopause or menopause, they actually end up getting divorced because their hormones are so out of balance that they're incredibly mean, right? And then why? Because they probably are not sleeping and they're probably not eating the right foods and they're holding weight. Like it's a complete, like a perfect storm. And when trauma keeps being repeated or inherited, your endocrine system gets stuck in that danger mode, right? And so trauma, we know it's not just emotional, it's hormonal, it's glandular, it's cellular, it's generational. And your hormones and endocrine system are never betraying you. They're just communicating. It's just a dysregulated moment. Your glands are not failing you. They're just trying to protect you because they think there's a danger. Your body, not broken, I assure you. It's just asking you, hey, can you listen up? Because every symptom literally is a story. Every imbalance is a message. Every hormonal shift is just an invitation. Your endocrine system is not just biology, it's a biography, it's ancestry, it's spirituality. Literally, it is your relationship with God. And when you work with your glands, with Kundalini Yoga meditation, where we use chanting, our breath, your nervous system regulates, that's what brings in the lineage healing because restoring your entire timeline. 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. Because through Kundalini Yoga meditation, we're working in the ethers, in the Akash, in the book of life. There is no time in the Akash. There is no time in the ethers. The soul is gonna visit the ethers, and it's when you take your last breath, but you can have conscious awareness even in that journey. And what we need for that is prana. We need to work with our nervous system and our brain, heal these traumas so we can stop the cycle of reincarnation and realize, hey, my body is so wise. It's not trying to take me out, it's just trying to send me messages. And everything in this world is absolutely healable. So I just want to reiterate, Sovereign Sister, that you are not hormonal. You're healing. You're moving through a phase in life. It's a dysregulated moment. It is not your identity. You're also not moody. You are just signaling. It's a signal. Your emotions are a signal in that moment in time and space. You're not too much. Your glands are just awakening and they're communicating with you. Your hormones, they're not the problem. They're actually the path. You are the light of your lineage, and your glands are the lamp that carry that light forward. Remember that. You are the sovereign sister that decided it ends with me, and it ends with me by doing the inner work to biologically, spiritually, and mentally disrupt the pattern. So if this resonated, I would love to get your own feedback, your own journey, and your own endocrine system and hormones, and also what exactly from this episode percolated awareness for you. Was there something that new that you learned or something that maybe even got unstuck? Remember, You can always go back to that mantra, to chanting, to begin your own journey of generational healing. And of course, you can always join us at the Sovereign Sisterhood Sanctuary, my online virtual community and movement for first time generational cycle breakers like you, healing 7 generations before and after you, where every month we focus on a specific generational healing theme that will liberate not just you, but all of your ancestors. So check out the link below to find out more about the sanctuary, see if we're a good fit for you to join our community. And of course, thank you so much for liking this episode. Thank you for checking out all the rest of the episodes, the immune system episode and the nervous system episode, which I'll link below. Huge and important for you as well. Thank you for sharing this episode with another sister who is ready to hear this. And thank you for subscribing. From the bottom of my heart, my deepest gratitude for all of you being part of this movement of generational healing, healing ourselves and ultimately the entire world. Be well, everyone, and I'll see you next week for another episode of the Sovereign Sisterhood Movement Podcast.